When it comes to ancient Egypt, archaeologists never know what they're going to find when they go exploring. From mummies with golden tongues to massive underground palaces, Egyptian history never runs out of surprises. So let's take a look at some of the most shocking ancient Egypt discoveries of all time. Queen Nate. The Saqqara burial grounds are one of the most important Egyptian discoveries of all time. This massive site has been explored over the course of several decades, and thousands of artifacts have been discovered. But now, this cemetery is more important than anyone ever realized. In 2021, archaeologists found a funeral temple that changed everything. Zahi Hawass is the world's leading Egyptologist. He has dedicated almost his entire life to discovering more about ancient Egypt, and he's been involved in the biggest excavations in Egyptian history. And now he's made one of the most important discoveries of his career: the identity of an Egyptian queen who lived over 4,000 years ago. In 2010, Hawass and his team found a queen's pyramid right beside the pyramid of King Teti. But they had no way of knowing the queen's actual identity. They were aware that King Teti had several wives, but this pyramid didn't belong to any of the ones they knew about. For over a decade, the queen's identity remained a mystery. But now, a new discovery has finally cracked the case. In January 2021, Hawass's team found a funerary temple dedicated to the mystery wife of King Teti, and carved into the walls of the temple was her name, Queen Nate. Hawass said in an interview, "I'd never heard of this queen before. Therefore, we add an important piece to Egyptian history about this queen." But that's not all. This team of archaeologists also found 52 ancient burial shafts, and inside they discovered over 50 coffins that are more than 3,000 years old. They also found a 13-foot-long scroll that had the 17th chapter of the Book of the Dead written on it. The Egyptians believed that you had to navigate the afterlife after you died before you could reach paradise, and the Book of the Dead was supposed to be a manual on how to accomplish this goal. But the most shocking discovery was that two of the mummies they found had tongues made of gold sitting in their mouths. Experts say that these were supposed to let the dead talk in the afterlife. Further digging by the archaeologists uncovered all kinds of other artifacts as well. They found an altar dedicated to Anubis, the dog-headed guardian of cemeteries, and even games for the dead to play in the afterlife. The most interesting of these games was called Senet, which is like chess but with much higher stakes. Ancient Egyptians believed that if a deceased person plays Senet and wins, they get to go into the afterlife safe and secure. But if they lose, their soul may wander the earth for eternity. And if it wasn't for Queen Nate, none of these amazing artifacts would have ever been found. The tombs built for powerful people in ancient Egypt are a perfect place to safely house sensitive items. Otherwise, all of this historical evidence would have likely been stolen, worn away, or destroyed somehow else over the course of the last several thousand years. And speaking of mummies, you won't believe this next discovery that absolutely shocked the archaeologists who found it. Burial chamber. In 2018, a group of researchers from Minya University and Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities were exploring Upper Egypt. And while searching the area, they accidentally stumbled upon one of the most shocking discoveries in recent history. Hidden inside a secret corridor, they found the bodies of over 40 mummies. Experts believe that the mummies all belonged to an upper-middle-class family that lived in the area more than 2,000 years ago. The Ministry of Antiquities put out a statement saying, "All are in a good conservation condition. Some of them were buried inside stone or wooden sarcophagi, while others were buried in sands or on the floors of the tombs or inside niches." Finding mummies doesn't happen every day, and most of the time they're in terrible conditions when they're found. That's what makes this discovery so special. Over 40 new mummies were retrieved from the ancient tomb, and all of them are in great shape. The archaeologists also found pottery and papyri inside the chambers that made it possible to narrow down the time period the mummies were from. And while we're on the topic of things that are thousands of years old, let's talk about one of the most shocking discoveries about Egypt's greatest wonders, the pyramids. Tomb of the Pyramid Builders. For centuries, people thought that it would be impossible to build the pyramids without using a massive number of slaves. But new evidence has been discovered that discredits this theory. In 1990, Egyptian researchers located the tombs of the pyramid builders, and it looks like they might have all been free men. Zahi Hawass was working on an unrelated archaeology expedition at the time. He was sitting at his desk and looking at some papers about the Pyramid of Khufu when the head of the pyramid guard came in and reported that a tourist had fallen off a horse and that Hawass should come look at the ground where it happened. Hawass rushed over to examine the area and he noticed a piece of stone sticking up out of the ground. This random piece of rock that the tourist's horse tripped over turned out to be part of a 4,000-year-old tomb that no one knew existed. And inside was a discovery that shocked every archaeologist in Egypt. This tomb was the final resting place for many of the men who worked on the pyramids, and the fact that their tomb was so close to the pyramid itself implies that the people inside were never slaves. Hawass said in an interview, "These tombs were built beside the king's pyramid, which indicates that these people were not by any means slaves. If they were slaves, they would not have been able to build their tombs beside their kings." The Tomb of the Pyramid Builders changes everything we know about ancient Egyptian society. For thousands of years, people all over the world thought that the pyramids and other monuments were built by slaves who endured brutal and horrific treatment. Even the ancient Greek historian Herodotus believed the pharaohs used slave labor. But now it seems like this might not have been the case at all. In fact, inside the Tomb of the Pyramid Builders, there is writing on the walls that says things like, "Friends of Khufu." Khufu is the pharaoh who ordered the Great Pyramid to be built, and it appears that his workers viewed him as a friend, not a slave master. There are also theories that Jews were forced to work on the pyramids, but new evidence has revealed that to be untrue as well. A Jewish historian named Josephus first mentioned this theory in the 1st century BC, but we now know that Jews didn't travel to Egypt until hundreds of years after the pyramids were finished. So, thanks to this one accidental discovery, we know more about the mysterious construction of the Great Pyramids. If it wasn't for one clumsy horse, we might never have found this amazing piece of historical evidence. You might think that 4,000 years is a long time ago, but this next shocking discovery makes that time period look like less than 1 second. Ancient whale. In 2021, scientists in Egypt found the fossil of a giant four-legged whale that dates back to 43 million years ago. Experts estimate that this massive creature was over 10 feet long and probably weighed around 1,300 pounds. It belongs to a group called the Protocetidae, which were whales that lived on both land and sea. The fossil was found in an area called the Fayum Depression, which used to be covered by the sea and is now home to thousands of ancient species. Scientists have been searching the depression for years and trying to figure out the evolutionary chain of whales in Africa. And this fossil is an incredibly important piece of the puzzle. This strange fossil is a huge missing link in the evolutionary chain in Africa. In between modern whales and dinosaurs, there was a period where massive whale-alligator hybrids roamed over land and sea. And thanks to this amazing discovery, researchers have been able to form a more complete timeline. It only took 40 million years, but we're finally putting all of the pieces together. Okay guys, that's all for our video on shocking Egypt discoveries.